Howdy, everyone, and welcome to another live digital kava session here on the Polynesianized podcast. You have Tua Fale here coming from Southern Nevada, the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas. Mr. Aotearoa is on the road, but he has been gracious enough to join us. He is in the mountains of Utah. Mr. Aotearoa, how are
Yes,
things?
sir. Hey, it's good, Tua. I'm glad to be here in the land of the free, home of the brave.
It's been a pretty good month and a half for the Polynesianized podcast.
Yes, yes. Really big milestone for sure.
Yeah, 100%. We Charlie Fly says special welcome, welcome, Charlie. And we
Malo,
also
Charlie.
have Polly Prince, some of our regulars, Malo, Malo,
Malo
Moa,
Polly Prince.
and the man from day one himself, Wada Bears.
Ooh, PR, our PR
So
representative.
yes, our official PR representative of the live digital kava session here on the Polynesianized podcast. So appreciate all the support. So we have a couple interesting things we're going to walk through on the program today. Let me know when you see this pop up, Mr. Aotearoa.
Yep, yep.
All right. You want to read this paragraph here at the top?
Yes, sir. Captain James Cook visited the Tongan Islands, which he famously dubbed the Friendly Islands, during his second Pacific voyages 1773, 1774, and 1777. His journals provide detailed accounts of his experiences, highlighting Tonga's unique cultural, social, and environmental characteristics compared to other Pacific islands like Tahiti, New Zealand, or Hawaii. Below, I've compiled some of the most interesting written accounts from Cook's journals that emphasize what made Tonga stand out, focusing on his observations of the people, their hospitality, social structure, and cultural practices. Each account includes exact quotes from his writings, sourced from authoritative editions of his journals, and his contextualized to show why Tonga was unique in his eyes. I've also included references to the specific journal entries and publications for verification. Number
Mhm.
one, when we go through the
Yeah.
first
Do
one,
number
Tor?
one and then we'll take turns. Yeah. Do
Okay.
number one.
Number one, exceptional hospitality and social warmth. 1773, first visit to Tonga. Cook was struck by the warm, unarmed reception he received in Tonga, particularly during his first visit to Ewa and Tongatapu in October 1773. Unlike other Pacific islands where initial encounters often involved caution or conflict, New Zealand Maori warriors, or Tahiti's occasional thefts, the Tongans greeted him with open friendliness, which led to his naming the archipelago the Friendly Islands. Quote from Cook's Journal, October 2nd, 1773, second voyage. We had no sooner come to an anchor than we were visited by a number of the natives in their canoes, who brought with them coconuts, breadfruit, plantains, and other fruits which they trucked for nails, beads, and other trinkets. They appear to be a friendly, well disposed people, and shewed not the least inclination to be troublesome or pilfer, as most of the other islanders we had visited had done. Cook Cook contrasts the Tongans' behavior with other Pacific Islanders, noting their lack of theft or hostility. In Tahiti, for example, I can't see the logo.
For instance, for
For
instance.
instance, frequently dealt with pilfering tools stolen from the Endeavour in 1769, and in New Zealand, his first encounters with the Maori in 1769 involved armed standoffs. The Tongans' immediate hospitality, offering abundant provisions without apparent ulterior motives, was exceptional. This warmth was evident in Ewa, where Chief Vakauta welcomed Cook at Valukolo, and in Tongatapu, where a large crowd greeted him unarmed, which he interpreted as a sign of peace. This contrasted with the more guarded receptions in places like Hawaii, where tensions arose during his third voyage. Hmm. What you think, Tua? What you think?
Yeah. No, this, once again, we need to remember that peace and order and structure
Mm,
doesn't happen by chance. Like there's a reason why there wasn't this initial approach with war or theft. They're the under what we need to look a little deeper into what this tells us.
mm,
The average Tongan understood the concept of trade. You don't just come and show up and ask for something,
mm,
right? You show up and you bring something to the table. That means you understand what trade is and how trades happen, how you give value to get value in return, right? There's not this overwhelming concept of theft. There seems to be a relatively, obviously wealthy, not in the sense of money of Europe, but there's there's no lack of food, there's no lack of resources, right? Where
mm,
everything has to be stolen. And so there seems to be a very different perspective on life, on what's the expectation when engaging with foreigners, and really the idea of hospitality and so forth. So to me, that shows the underpinning of strong social structure, strong economic structure, and that's all possible because there was a mechanism to enforce the rules and the norms over long periods of time, that it was no longer by force anymore. Everyone understood their role and their responsibility. You didn't need martial law to keep order. That's kind of my initial thoughts there.
nice. No, when I was reading this makes sense of just how the stability. Like even he went to Ewa, was treated the same way. Went to Tongatapu, where the resident of the Tuitonga was um still treated the same way, and it's just like the further distance of the Polynesian empire or the Tuitonga empire seems like they were like a little bit unstabilized with their regional governors, like Tahiti and with New Zealand, and it kind of made it was almost like people were a little bit freely to do whatever. That's what it seems like, and it seems like punishment was not a big thing because I mean, people in Ewa and Tongatapu can behave that same way, but knowing the consequence that's gonna happen if they were gonna do that, looks like was gonna be severe. I don't know. That's what I'm just interpreting as to with
Yeah,
Cook's visits and observations, because law was very
100%.
looks like law was very strictly observed in
Yeah,
Ewa and
and this
Tongatapu.
is, Legrand here from Facebook says, but wasn't the plan to kill Cook in Tonga if true Cook was just witnessing a stage play before things got real? That's in Ha'apai,
Different,
right?
which is
That's
different than
different.
Ewa and Tongatapu.
Yes. No, maybe, but going back to it, I mean, wasn't what was the chief that Maui said? Was it Kaufana? Was it
Kaufana, yes,
that one chief that he probably sacked more European ships than anyone else, and he was
Ye-
from Ewa. So
correct.
maybe,
No, and
maybe Legrand, maybe that was the case. I don't know.
no, and just to add on, it is Maui even mentioned it, and he's probably correct that Ewa is known to sack the most European ships. So if it was gonna happen that first visit, it would have been Ewa, that first visit he did, but obviously it didn't happen. It just and probably just depend on the mood. If they were like when he went to Hot Pie, if that was gonna be carried out, it would have happened. But at the end of the day, the people are just doing what the chief or the governor says. But in New Zealand and what is it, Tahiti, looks like it was more it was maybe more of people on their own doing things, unless the chiefs ordered them to stand off and steal. But I just find it very interesting that that was the observation. from Cook.
Okay. Not 100%. Here's a question here, Mr. Atearo. I'll read out to you, see what your thoughts are.
Do
T
you?
Style says,
Okay,
oh,
go
go
for it.
ahead. Go ahead.
Okay, T Style says, do you believe that capitalism can happen or sustain in a society that has not been colonialized or colonized? Probably meaning, can a society have capitalism without being colonized? What you think, Dua?
Hmm. It's hard to tell, um, because obviously capitalism is something that was, as far as we could see, documented from the West, that was installed. But the whole idea, to me, it depends on how you define capitalism. If
Mm,
you define capitalism as you create value and that's how you can exchange with other people, is if they create value, and when two people create value and do an exchange, I would see that as a type of capitalism, right? I
mm,
mean, just looking at the tufunga kind of situation, that tufunga, um, or fatongia, I think Siasi Layu likes to call it the fatongia system. Everyone had their own way of creating value in society, and they used that value that they created to give tribute, obviously, to the tuitonga, which is taxes. um I mean, inasi, which was taxes, and then polo polo, which is a tithe. But they also seem to be trading with each other,
mm,
right? So it's capitalism probably in the form of barter, and not necessarily capitalism through monetary exchange. Because I'm not sure. I mean, probably the closest thing you have to money is maybe the koloa, whakatonga, right? Maybe that's the closest thing, because the koloa whakatonga is almost universal in Tongan culture, right? Like it can be, it's the closest thing to cash without being cash in Tongan society.
mm. Yeah, my thoughts, Tua, when you were kind of explaining this question from Tongan style. Good question, Tongan style. My thoughts are like, look at Tonga now. It's using some sort of capitalism at, it's mostly capitalism to fund what Tonga is today, regarding the businesses that are run there. Um, Obviously, the hospital and other stuff is more um, universal care, and it's Tonga is still sustaining with capitalism principles, and how far you want to use that, if it's just full capitalism. I just know capitalism today is probably the only way that is able to lift people out of poverty, probably by far. And I always say, socialism only works within your own within your own family or kainga. If you take that across and spread it all over, it's gonna be really sad. We will be like Cuba, Venezuela, like very fagaofa. But to my understanding, Tonga today is using capitalism, um, and it's a country that's never been colonized. So it's still going today. It's not perfect because we do still have a lot of cultural ties, and that's why socialism exists in your kainga, and I think that's where it is fine, because you have family ties and it's easy to let people use stuff and not expecting a return. Hey, if you get a return, that's good, but if not, you can still live. You can still
Yes.
live. But that's just my thoughts there. I don't know if you had
Yeah.
anything to it, but that's
Yeah. I
that's
got a
just
couple.
that's my
I got
thing
a
right there.
couple interesting things in my mind that's funny. So I still remember this from economics class back in Tonga. And I think I first heard of this term in Form 3 at Tonga High School. And it was my economics class. And they said, you know what the number one killer of business on Tonga is? And they had a specific term for it.
Mm.
They said, it's the kainga problem. And what is the kainga problem, right? Like this is a economic principle in my economics class in Tonga. And the kainga problem is when you start a business and your kainga comes and whakamo'ua, or ask for something to pay, like you said, Masi, right? Like you have a little wharekoloa, and your kainga comes and says, hey, can we just borrow this and we'll pay you next time? And then they borrow. It's like, oh, sai pe, oh, to, sai pe kong toko ua.
Eh,
Eh? Go forward now,
Mm,
family. You don't have to worry about that, or don't worry. That's the kainga problem, right? You can't
mm,
bring the socialist type of thinking into business because why? Like we said earlier, that's why to me, capitalism is when two people create value and
mm,
can exchange. The reason why the kainga problem is a problem is one person in the kainga has a store. They brought the value to the table. The second one who came to ask for something didn't bring any value to the table. So what happens? There's no exchange of value. That's capitalism,
mm.
right? You can look at tauhiva as a form of capitalism, right? I'm going to pay my respects. I give goods and resources and to a funeral or to a wedding. And then what happens when you have a funeral or a wedding? That person comes back. So there's an exchange. As long as there's an
Yes.
exchange of value, to me, that is the underlying principle of capitalism. Now, I'm going to add another story. So you remember Masi when I first moved to Texas and I worked in the startup and we were working on a financial platform.
Yeah.
And we went to Samoa, American Samoa, went to Tonga, went to Fiji because
Yeah.
we were going to launch in
A
all of those
big
islands,
Pacific trip. Yeah.
right? Yeah. And my one of my funniest stories, and this is like why I think it's funny to hear some of our Polynesian people what they think creating value really is, and they don't understand it. So I'm sitting down. I just graduated from college maybe 2 years earlier. I'm sitting down across from the CEO of one of the banks in Fiji. Fiji had just opened a new bank. And we were meeting with them. I met with like three or four CEOs of different banks in Fiji and had some conversations trying to build a relationship to open a bank account. When you're doing financial movement of money internationally, it's very difficult. One of the simplest things you can do when you start a business is open a bank account, right? Well, not when you're doing with moving money internationally for obvious reasons, right?
Mm,
Money laundering and terrorism and all that stuff. So it's difficult. So I'm sitting down across from the CEO of this Fiji bank,
mm,
and he's grilling me, right? He's like, what do you mean you're going to help the people of Fiji, right? Like, and I was trying to tell him, I was like, look, for prosperity to happen, people need to be able to, and we were coming up with all these what we thought was cool ways to explain it. The miracle of exchange, right? It was like we want to connect people to exchange with each other. That's what capitalism does best than any other system. It allows people to not only create value, but then it facilitates the exchange of value. And as you're exchanging value, the economy grows, right?
mm,
So I'm sitting there and I go through my whole spiel. I thought I was doing a great job of explaining how we're going to help people in Fiji exchange, buy and sell from Fijians outside of Fiji and other people. And he looks at me and he goes, "That's not how you get people out of poverty." And I'm confused, right? I'm like, well, what do you mean? Like that's how everybody's gotten out of poverty is you buy and sell from each other and you build little by little. So I said, well, I apologize, sir, but how is it that you think people are going to get out of poverty? And he goes, by giving people bank accounts. And I couldn't believe it.
mm,
I was like, he got angry at me because I said, sir, you have no idea how to help people get out of poverty. Because I said, if it was that easy, issue every Fijian a bank account and that would solve poverty,
mm,
right? And then I gave him the statistic 80% of people who get bank accounts in the Pacific never use their bank account,
mm,
never use it. Why? Because they don't have the capacity to buy and sell from each other. And if you can't use your bank account to buy and sell from each other, then what's the point of having a bank account?
mm,
And so I bring up this story because
mm.
you have to have a good understanding of how things work so you can appreciate when Captain Cook says, "Oh, they all showed up and they wanted to exchange with me,"
Mm.
right? They weren't like in Tahiti, they got on the boat to try and steal something, right? Or in the Maoris trying to kill me. These people showed up and said, "Hey, I have something of value. You need food, you need water, you need resources." We understand that because we've done trips,
Mm. Good
we've
point.
navigated.
Mm.
Here, let me give you this because you have something I want, right?
Mm.
And we've talked about this, and we'll see it later on. I'll save that comment for later on. But I don't know. Those were just kind of a funny couple stories because, oh, right here, GT here says it 100%. I have a bank account and I'm broke, right? Because of that. Just because you have a bank account doesn't mean you're going to get out of poverty.
Mm.
It's you have to facilitate, allow people to buy and sell from each other. And
Mm.
you have to do that. And that's why we use credit cards. That's why we use Apple Pay because it's so convenient to buy and sell from each other. But you
Mm.
have to bring value to the table. And that's to me what I saw Tongans when they came to Captain Cook. You know, but this is the thing, it's built into our culture. Oh, teke asi kage hame ahon nima.
Mm. Mm.
What is that saying? Don't show up without bringing some value. It doesn't matter how small, right?
Yeah.
Like if you go to a kalapu or something, if you throw 50 cents, it's better than sitting down and not bring anything,
Mm.
you
Mm.
know? Anyways, yeah, maybe
Oh,
that's my thoughts there.
no, and just to add on to that, if you show up and you don't have any value to bring, you're gonna be the person to paru the kava the next one. That's your
Yes,
value. You'll do
that's how you
like you
bring
gotta do
value.
something. You're gonna do have to do something if you're not bringing anything else. No, I was just thinking of just funny stories when Tongan Style brought up his question. Like there's stories of people, you know, people have this perception like what you mentioned too with the Fare Koloa. They have everything, and there's a perception that when you have a Fare Koloa, get to umari, you're wealthy enough, so then people will do the whakamuua stuff. And then there's some other stories of, when families have like mini kavengas going on, and when somebody comes in, at least they're coming to, they sweep the front yard, and then after they're done cleaning and stuff, they'll come and ask, and then you're like, okay, at least that's something. Eh? Then, but it's,
Yeah.
you're scraping by because you have other fatongias you're scraping by, and then like. This is yesterday. They come back and do again, and they do the same thing again. They do the same thing and ask for something else. And like, oh man, then you figure out you gotta be your whatever your very maneuvery tongue way style to talk to that person how you're gonna help them and not to do it every day because but it's just funny. Like those are the things that I find it very funny, with the whole exchanging and um the sharing and collective community collective way in Tonga. But with the whole capitalism to it, you're right, because I don't know any other philosophy that has actually brought prosperity to people other than capitalism, because capitalism is what creates the wealth, and it's the other philosophies like socialism and the other parts who actually take
Only
the money.
extracted. Yeah.
Yes, and what he mentioned with its sustained society, Tonga's. Would you say Tonga is using majority of capitalism other than asking for foreign aids? I mean, that's what Tonga is really built on. If you think about it, the Tongans that are in Tonga creating businesses, that's a capitalism way. They're creating
Hmm.
value, and people are buying their value, exchanging with their currency. And then when you want to go further than that, a lot of the countries like America, New Zealand, Australia is built a lot on capitalism with what they're trading. They create that value and receive that value, and then they send it back to Tonga because they're sending their remittance back to Tonga. So that's capitalism. So I mean, capitalism is, Tonga was not colonized. They saw this as the best way to lift up its standard of living and empower everybody to have greater wealth. Tonga is much wealthier today than even 10 years ago. So yeah, I mean, that's my thoughts there regarding Tongan Styles question, Tua.
No, 100%. I'm good with that. Let's go to our next one here. All right. Where is my number two? I'll read number two.
Mm,
Sophisticated social organization and festivals, 1777, third voyage. During his extended stay in Tonga in 1777, April to July, Cook observed the Katoanga Inasi, an annual tribute festival in Mua Tongatapu, which showcased Tonga's complex social hierarchy and cultural richness. This event, held under the legendary banyan tree Malumalu o Furilangi, impressed him as a display of order and communal unity, unlike anything he saw anywhere else in the Pacific.
mm,
Quote from Cook's journal, July 1777, his third voyage. The inasi is a ceremony or offering made to the king or chief of the island and is performed once a year at the time of the yams are fit to be dug up.
mm,
The people assemble from all parts of the island and bring them yams, fish, fowls, cloth, and other things in great abundance, all which is presented to the king with great ceremony under a large banyan tree. The order and decorum observed on this occasion is worthy of imitation in more civilized nations. High compliment, in my
mm,
opinion, to say
mm,
that. Not a whisper was to be heard, nor the least disorder among the numerous spectators. Cook was particularly impressed by the disciplined organization of the Inasi ceremony, which involved thousands of Tongans presenting tributes to the Tuitonga sacred king. He compared the event's decorum favorably to European assemblies, a rare compliment for a Pacific society. In contrast, Tahitian ceremonies like the Heva dances were lively but less formal, and Hawaiian rituals during his 1778 through 1779 visits were steeped in religious significance, example, the Lono Festival,
mm,
but lacked the same communal discipline. The scale of the event, with goods like yams, fish, and tapa cloth presented in an orderly fashion, highlighted Tonga's agricultural abundance and social cohesion. Cook noted the involvement of all parts of the island, suggesting a unified political structure under the Tuitonga, which differed from the more fragmented, sound familiar? We've had this
yeah.
discussion many times, fragmented chiefdoms he encountered in places like Society Islands or Hawaii. Any thoughts on
Very.
that, Mr. Aotearoa?
I think this is kind of the same kind of narrative we've been kind of sharing, the unification of the people, just how close. Because remember, 1777, which is he's recording this, was the Tuitonga was very on the decline at this time. Now it's really shrink the influence of the Tuitonga mostly to Haamoa, Tonga, Fiji, and maybe um Uvea and Futuna in that area. But I mean, yeah, it's just what we always say. The everyone is acting in unison for such a huge event. Looks like he's comparing it to the Hawaii when he was there, and also um some other parts of the Polynesian, the Tahitians. He mentioned
Hmm.
with with how big the event is, there was not even a sound when they were doing the the ceremony, which is very, well, very impressive for such a huge. Because I'm thinking all of Tongatapu, Ha'apai, Wava'u, and who knows Ha'amoa, parts of Ha'amoa, Fisi are all gathering in this place, and even other parts like Ewa and up to Futuna and Uvea were all gathering, and everyone was acting in reverence, which is a sign of being civil, which is what the Europeans saw as you were acting in a particular way of reverence to a particular ruler, and that was a sign of you being civil, and that being civil was a indication of Europeans seeing that you were you were somewhat not of what savagery behavior. Eh?
Yeah,
You know what I mean, Tua? So very interesting, and I'm not surprised that this is what Cook observed, because it is close to some of the oral histories that our ancestors have said with the reverence of the Tuitonga during that time period, and which has played a significant role to passing of the road to Taufahau and maintaining Tonga's sovereignty, being the only Polynesian or the only Pacific nation to maintain its sovereignty and not be colonized. So that's my thoughts there, Tua. You have anything?
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just amazing to me when you think about this, Mr. Atearoa, that how many generations this was occurring, how long this has been going on, thousands of years. The Inasi and the Polo Polo. He has no idea about the Polo Polo, right? He
Yeah.
has no idea about that. But to me, and I think I saw it in one of the comments earlier on there. Sorry, can't get to all the comments. A lot of activity on
Mm,
the chats in the background, but someone had mentioned in the chats that like these are behaviors that are even shared to this day,
mm,
right? The the Red Sea. Let's use the example of the Red Sea, right? That we think like, oh, that just happens spontaneously. Like Tongans are just really good at like magically can unify themselves and get behind and push in the same direction and sing and cheer and support. That kind of stuff doesn't just happen by chance.
mm.
When we look at the Inasi and look at what Captain Cook's saying, he says the scale. We talked about this on other things too, right, Masi? If there's one thing that Tongans seem to do well, man, they can do things at scale, like
Yeah.
scale that's not normal. I watched an interview of a Fijian gentleman who's at the Tui Neau and the Tui
Oh,
Lau kind of
installation. Yeah.
installation, and he's like, I haven't seen anything like this scale,
Mm,
right? Like everybody's excited, everybody, and then they said from the very young people in the village to the old, just the scale of it. He said he's never experienced that seems to be a trend, and Captain Cook is seeing it. And like what you said, Masi, it is at the Tuitonga's decline. It is at one of the
I know.
lowest points of the two. Can you imagine? Can you imagine the scale of it at the height of the
Mm,
Tuitonga? Maybe that's why Momo said, guys, let's start having these Inasi and Polo Polo stuff happening at other parts outside
mm,
of the capital because
mm,
it's getting humongous. It's very dangerous. It's difficult
mm,
to have people coming, and it's just like you know the scale of it was getting to a point that even then it's like, man, this is too much.
mm,
So I think it's and then for him to say that even Western civilizations, civilized people could learn something from
mm.
what he saw. He's like, dude, I don't know how you get a bigger compliment than that.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. And this
so
is 1700s during the time of hardly any Palangi. So he's one of the few Palangis to kind of witness something like that, you know?
yes, make contact.
Uh,
All right, number three,
Number three, this is me. Vibrant cultural practices and was it
ethnographic.
ethnographic detail 1777 Rifuka Ha'apai. Cook's visit to Rifuka in the Ha'apai group in April 1777 during his third voyage provided a vivid account of Tongan hospitality and cultural performances. He described the feasts and entertainment hosted by Chief Finau, which included dances, boxing matches, and wrestling, all performed with a level of energy and community participation that set Tonga apart. Quote from Cook's Journal, April 29, 1777, third voyage. We were entertained with music and dancing by the natives. The former consisted of a kind of drum and a flute made of a bamboo. The latter was performed by men and women. The men danced in one place and the women in another, and their performance was accompanied with songs. Let me guess, talakalaka. Eh?
Yes,
They also diverted us with boxing and wrestling matches, in which both men and women took a part and shewed great strength and agility. The whole was conducted with a degree of good order and regularity which one would hardly expect among a people we are used to call savages. Cook's Cook's description of the performances underscores Tonga's vibrant communal culture where both men and women participated actively in physical contests and dances. This inclusivity in public performances was less prominent in other Pacific societies he visited, such as Tahiti, where dances were often performed by specific groups, the Aiodi. The
Hmm.
good order and regularity of these events again impressed Cook, who was accustomed to viewing non European peoples through a lens of savagery. In contrast, his accounts of Hawaiian or Maori gatherings often noted underlying tensions and unpredictability. The Tongans' ability to host such elaborate entertainments while maintaining order reinforced his perception of their civility earning the Friendly Islands moniker. What's your thoughts, Tua?
Yes. Yeah. So once again, as one of the viewers mentioned earlier, this is the actual event
Of the hot, but when he
that
first came to
when
Finau
yeah,
Ulukalala, yeah.
yes, and Finau and the Chiefs there were considering ending Captain Cook's explorations. So this is the reference there. So obviously, once again, he's saying he's blown away by the order, and this is not just the order on Ewa, not just on Tongatapu. He's starting to see this order in Ha'apai, right? He's being the structure. Now, why are the Tongans so well organized in hosting entertainment and events? Because of the hierarchical structure and the order. And when the Tuitonga came, the Tuihatakalaua came, the Tuikanukupolu came, or whatever primary chief you're visiting, what do? You have a kava ceremony, you have feasts, you have
Mhm.
entertainment. We still do it to this day, right? Like one of the things that I always enjoy hearing is when someone who's never been to Tonga before, or never been to a whakaafe, or to a weekend,
Oh, yeah,
or to a conferenisi in Tonga, they are just blown away by how much food is brought to the table,
yeah. That is
right?
pretty cool. Yeah.
Like that is like I said, we see a lot of Polynesians do it, but not at the scale, man. Like I remember growing up in Tonga every year. Oh, sorry, there's no more mayonnaise on the island. You gotta wait like 3 weeks. Oh, there's no more eggs on the island. Whatever it is, right? Like whenever it was a conference, it was Weekend Lotu, it was Christmas, right? Because those are all those big events. There's no more food on the island. And I'm like, there can't be that many people on this island, but just the sheer volume and the scale of hosting these events are next to none. And it's still visible today. You see a Tonga in America, in New Zealand. You see the Tonga Tawataina or Shaswesiana Tawataina
Yeah.
throughout. You see in the LDS church, Tongan steaks,
Mm.
Tongan wards in New Zealand, Australia. Like this is still happening today amongst our people. And I just want to reiterate, you don't get this kind of behavior just last minute or whatever. It's almost like it's in our DNA. We can't help it. We've been doing this for thousands and thousands of years. And what have we been doing? Organizing, bringing people together,
Mm.
creating structure. We're creating order, creating events, hosting events, right? Massive food production,
Mm.
massive food consumption. This is something our ancestors have been doing for thousands of years. And when you watch how we behave, a lot of it is it's in our blood. And then once again, I want to tie it back to the beginning. What's the underlying theme? You're able to have scale and prosperity and order and structure because there was a religious or philosophical concept that was reinforced with military strength. And after a long period of time, it just becomes normal behavior, right?
Mm.
That's just one of my comments there. Anything to add to that, Mr.
Yeah,
Aotearoa?
no, Tua, I was just going back in the days. If we didn't have modern sports like in Tonga, like the rugby league, the modern boxing. It would be cool if because we still do the laka laka and performances, those days. And then once you do those big performances, everybody, one on one goes back to their family, kind of go back and you're done for the day. But I was just thinking it would be cool if we did it like how we did it those days. After you do the performance, let's have a boxing match. I was like, that would be pretty cool because that seems to be the routine. If we did have modern sports like we have in Tonga now to kind of have that entertainment of the sports, oh, I just thought what would be the occasion would be very cool because I could just think I'm just reminiscing back in my time when we would perform for big events and stuff. I could just see myself as a little kid after doing the performance, laka laka or whatever. I go back to sit and then get some pinati and just sit down and just see who's gonna be boxing with each other and just have a fabulous time. And that's something like our ancestors back in the days were probably doing. Could be ifi or eating some ota or whatever after they do their performance. Sit with the other palangis and just see which people in Hapai or in the Hapai Islands coming over there. Who's gonna be the boxing match? And that
Yeah,
would be a fun day. But I don't know. That was just me when I was reading that, and you were going over
yeah,
that. I was like, man, that would be funny. If we didn't have modern
hundred
sports,
percent.
if we didn't have modern sports, we probably revert back to how we did it back in those days. But it would have been hella funny.
No, 100%. I think that would have been the case if we didn't. If we didn't for sure.
Ay,
All
ay.
right, number four. Is it my turn to read, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay, number four, agricultural abundance and trade network, 1774, Nomuka Ha'apai. So another location in Ha'apai. During his second visit to Tonga in June 1774, Cook stopped at Nomuka in the Ha'apai group and was amazed by the island's agricultural productivity and the Tongans' established inter island trade networks.
Mm,
He noted their ability to supply his ships with provisions, which surpassed what he experienced in other Pacific islands. Quote from Cook's Journal, June 1774, second voyage says the island of Nomuka is exceedingly fruitful and yields coconuts, yams, plantains, breadfruit, and sugarcane. I can guarantee you he never got yams in Samoa if he went there. If you know the inside joke, you know the inside joke there. Okay? That's a story named Bo or whatever your name is. Anyways, breadfruit and sugarcane in
mm,
great plenty, besides hogs and fowls. The inhabitants seemed to have a considerable trade with other islands,
mm,
for we saw several large double canoes, which appeared to be built for carrying on this traffic. Their hospitality was such that they supplied us with provisions in great abundance and would take nothing in return but what we forced upon them.
mm,
Look at that.
mm,
They sometimes they were just giving it not with the expectation. Maybe they were trying to kill them after. I don't know.
mm.
Cook's observation of Nomuka's agricultural wealth and trade networks highlighted Tonga's economic sophistication. Once again, the presence of large double canoes indicated a robust inner island communication and trade system, which he did not describe in such detail for other Pacific archipelagos like the Society Islands or Marquesas. For example, while Tahiti was fertile, its trade was more localized, and Cook's resupply efforts there often involved protracted negotiations. So not as
What is
abundant, even
yeah.
yeah. So protracted is like very concerted and a hard work to get negotiations, very difficult
Ah.
negotiations. The Tongans' reluctance to demand payment for provisions was particularly striking. In contrast, Cook's journals from Tahiti and Hawaii frequently mention bartering challenges or theft of goods, suggesting a more transactional relationship amongst. So he's saying the people in the outer islands were much more transactional. Interesting.
Mm,
The generosity at Nomuka combined with the island's productivity made Tonga a standout provisioning stop. Interesting.
mm. Very
Thoughts,
interesting.
Mr. Atero?
Yeah, when he say that's such a talking thing. When they give something, they're not expecting something back, which I'm finding very interesting. Now that I've kind of been in Ha'amoa for a little bit, 2 years, and then living in Tonga for a lot of my childhood. I found so when I go to Tonga, a lot of the times when I go to Tonga, if I have something, I have something. If I go see some family, but I'm gonna go because it's most important to go to Feiluaki and see face and you talk, and then you can plan another day to have something to bring to the family or something. But I've noticed with some Ha'amoa people, like some of them who've never seen family for years, Dua. Some of them, some of them don't even. They have to get something really nice in order to visit, because when they visit their families are expecting something from them. I don't know if this is, and that's why when you were reading that, I'm like, this must be a Tongan thing or must be only a family thing. But most Tongans that I do know, like if they haven't seen family for a while, the most thing you just go and show up. Kefeilaki Talanoa. That's the most thing, because it's always been
Hmm.
Ofa has been the number one. Anything after the Ofa and everything can come later with the materialistic thing. And when you were reading that, that was just what was floating in my mind. But then some of my, I've been in Ha'amoa, and then I met some Ha'amoa people that, came from Australia that haven't met family for like 10, 15 years. And then some of them, like, you know, they just have enough money just to visit Samoa, and not, and maybe their bags weren't there yet, because they was, we all know when you get a check-in bag, sometimes they come in later if you come from long flights because the cargo was full. And some of them won't be able to visit family unless they have, I don't know, I just find that a little bit weird. Is that just me, Tua? But I do find that a little weird that when they won't visit their family unless they have something really nice. And this is family they haven't seen for a while. I don't know. I find that very weird. I just thought I would share that because looks like Cook's experience was Tongans would just give whatever, but not expect anything in return. It's all about they value, because you're fo'o, or you're new, you're somebody new. They're gonna value that instead of you having something to give back, like a transactional exchange. I don't know.
Mm.
You can,
Yeah.
maybe I'm going off. It's my personal experience. It could be just our family thing, or is this a Tongan thing that's greater than just more outside of our family, or I don't know. I haven't. That's just my thoughts there, Tua. When I was reading that, kind of comparing it to my own experience. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what makes it interesting. I know there was this there's the phrase that I've heard, "Si'ikaiha," and I guess I've heard people interpret it as, "Oh, we're small, but we have a huge impact."
Mm,
I've heard people interpret it that way, but Maui Tegelangi shared that really the origin of that phrase was a Tuitonga who became Tuitonga. His mother was from a very small island, right?
mm,
And and they were kind of ashamed to bring something because it wasn't big,
mm,
wasn't something, and they kind of told the Tuitonga, we apologize, we don't bring anything bigger because we're from a smaller island, our humble, where we are humble beginnings and so forth. And the Tuitonga said, "Usigang mahuingang hohamay," meaning we're not worried about what you brought. What's important is you showed
mm,
up.
mm,
Eh? And
mm,
so that goes along with that story comes to mind when you were sharing what you were saying, Masi, is what's important is that you show up, not necessarily what you bring. That's why don't worry about how little or how big, whatever you
mm,
bring, right? And and if you come with, like you said, if you show up to the kava and you have nothing, well, you can palu the kava.
mm.
There's always something. And at the
Something
end
to
of the
do.
day, yes, but at the end of the day, like you said, what's more important is
You show
you
up.
showed. Yeah, you showed up. Um, so yeah, so I thought that was interesting. I also thought it was very interesting how he discussed the not transactional, that they were more worried about. Sounds like they were more worried about the relationship
Iyo.
than the transaction, right? Because that's really saying, oh, it's not the pig or the coconut that's important. What's important is you and I have a relationship,
Mm.
and we can be of help to each other if things were to happen. Here's a comment here by Legrand Mariette that says Tahitian fed Cook and his crew, though every day he spent in Tahiti, and he and his crew were given hogs, coconut, breadfruit, and more. That's what I read from his stories anyway. Hey,
Mm.
that probably is true. Some of the context here is though Legrand is, hey, granted, you know, there may be other stories to it, but what was kind of shown here is it's not that they didn't get hogs and fruit and stuff, but they had to negotiate a lot for that. It's kind of the understanding that I kind of got the difference. It wasn't like, if this is accurate what we're reading, it wasn't like, oh, Cook said he showed up and they gave it to him. They showed up, they had to actually really negotiate um protractively to get it. So they actually
Mm.
had to negotiate through difficult terms to try and get what the provisions that they needed. But
Mm.
the other thing that stuck out, Masi, that that may be the reason why Captain Cook showed up so many times to Tonga as well, because that's the place he said we can get a lot of provisions there and we can get a lot more resources
Mm.
at
Mm.
one stop. Then if we go
Mm.
to the other islands, the Maoris are trying to kill us, the Tahitians and the Hawaiians, some of them are stealing stuff from us and they're difficult to get resources from. So maybe that's another reason why he showed up to Tonga three times.
Mm.
You
No,
know,
no, very awesome. I wanted to touch on the relationship because that goes back to what my experience is always that Tongans always value relationship, and it's part of that Tongan value, that tawi vaha with your kainga and stuff. That's always, when you haven't seen them for a while, the most important thing is you show up. Then when you keep constantly coming see up, then you always prepare and bring always nice things to your family. But I just found that very interesting that I don't know, just from my experience. And of course, other families were a bit different, but like I don't know, for most Tongans, it was always just showing up because that, like what you said, the relationship, just like the people back in Ha'apai with their encounter with Captain Cook, they wanted to have some kind of relationship with Cook, and him just showing up was a big deal. But nah, that was just kind of my thoughts there.
all right. Let's see if we can go on to the next item here, number 5.
All right, that's me. Unawareness of a plot against him. 1777. Di Fuka Ha'apai. Cook's journals from his 1777 visit to Di Fuka reveal his obliviousness to a Tongan plot to attack his crew and seize his ship, a detail later recounted by William Mariner, who lived in Tonga from 1806 to 1810. This account, while not directly quoted by Cook, as he was unaware of the plot, is significant because it underscores the Tongans' strategic cunning, which contrasted with their outward friendliness and set them apart from other Pacific peoples. I would say their political savviness. The people of this island, the Fuka, continue to behave with the same friendliness and civility as at first, and was it supplied provisions
Yeah.
in great plenty. I had no reason to suspect any ill design, for their behavior was such as to gain confidence of the most cautious. Supplementary account, not by Cook but relevant. William Mariner, adopted by Chief Finau after the 1806 attack on the Port au Prince, recorded that Finau's father had, is it, where that logo is covering to, what is it?
planned planned to
Planned
attack.
to attack Cook in 1777. The plot was abandoned due to a dispute among chiefs, and Cook remained unaware. The contrast between the Tongans' outward hospitality and their concealed strategic planning was unique in Cook's Pacific experiences. In other islands, such as Hawaii, tensions were more overt. The theft of a boat in 1779 led to his death, and in Tahiti, theft was common but rarely escalated to planned attacks. The Tongans' ability to maintain a facade of friendliness while plotting an ambush demonstrated a level of political sophistication that Cook did not encounter elsewhere. This duality reinforced the Friendly Islands moniker, ironically, as Cook's trust in the Tongan civility blinded him to their potential threat. His journals from other islands like New Zealand often note suspicion of native intentions, but in Tonga, he expressed unwavering confidence in their goodwill. Here are additional unique references from Captain James Cook's journals that highlight what made Tonga distinct in his eyes compared to other Pacific islands, focusing on aspects not covered in the previous response. These accounts emphasize Tonga's unique environmental features, navigational skills, and interpersonal dynamics, drawn from his second 1772, 1775, and third 1776 to 1780 voyages. Each includes exact quotes from Cook's writings sourced from J.C. B. Beaglehole's authoritative editions, with explanations of why these observations set Tonga apart. I've avoided repeating themes like hospitality or the Inasi ceremony already discussed, focusing instead on fresh insights.
So, once again, this kind of goes back to the beginning of our discussion on different kinds of warriors,
Mm.
right? There's warriors who fight bravely and die quickly. And then there are warriors who use their mind and use politics, use entertainment to achieve their goals. And that's a big reason why Tonga is still independent today. They they managed and controlled where the battlefield was, and
Mm.
they knew the battles they could win and the battles that they couldn't win. They understood if we try and fight bravely and die quickly, Tonga will be colonized. So what do? We study, we observe, we see what we need to do to move the battle into a political arena, and then how to
Mm.
use treaties, how to use a governmental structure um, to help them win the battle and the war of maintaining independence. But I thought that was pretty interesting right there.
Yeah. Just to add on to see, this is where it all starts when people like trying to understand what do you mean the political maneuvering and the and changing which shade, which shade to stand on when the sun is at a different direction. You're moving around. Dude, this is where it all starts. It's always from the top to the bottom. You don't aggressively uh, attack something just on the sake. There has to be some political maneuvering. Everyone's got to be on the same page, and not only that, but when there's a disagreement, don't rush to things. That's the kind of steadiness and stillness that look. Only somebody with that mindset must have, and they only have that mindset from the past. So it's very interesting, and this is a good theme or a good point that people can look to, that why Tonga was a bit different. We didn't
Mm.
we didn't act all surprised when Palangis came to our shores. We didn't act too like kind of overpraising Palangis when they came over our shore. We're just steady, calm, have fun. We just treat them like another kaunga api, like another neighbor just hasn't visited for a while, that looks different and has some unique materials that they came with.
Yep, 100%. And they have two hands and 2 feet just like us. And if we understand how to deal with them, we will figure out how to deal with them.
Yeah.
Number six, remarkable environmental beauty and cultivation, 1773, Tongatapu. During his first visit to Tongatapu in October 1773, Cook was struck by the island's meticulously cultivated landscape and natural beauty, which he described as surpassing other Pacific islands in its orderly appearance. Unlike the rugged terrain of New Zealand or the less systematically farmed Society Island, Tongatapu's flat, fertile land and structured agriculture impressed him as a model of human ingenuity. Quote from Cook's journal, October 4th, 1773, second voyage. The island of Tongatapu is low and level, and the soil appears to be very rich producing coconuts, plantains, breadfruit, yams, and other roots in great abundance. The whole face of the country has the appearance of a well cultivated garden. Can you imagine that, Masi?
Mm,
All of Tongatapu,
mm,
one well cultivated garden? Geez. The plantations are laid out with great regularity, and the paths or lanes between them are kept in good order. I have seen no place in these seas that can compare with it for beauty and cultivation.
mm.
Cook's description of Tongatapu as a well cultivated garden highlights its exceptional agricultural organization. In contrast, Tahiti's lush but less orderly fields, or the Marquesas' steep, less arable terrain, did not evoke the same sense of deliberate landscaping. The regularity of Tongan plantations and maintained paths suggested a sophisticated land management system which Cook found unparalleled in the Pacific. His claim that no other place in the Pacific compared for beauty and cultivation elevates Tongatapu above even Tahiti, which he often praised for its fertility. This reflects Tonga's unique ability to combine natural abundance with human effort, creating a visually striking and productive landscape. Pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah. Too, when you're reading that, and then the other part when you touch about Ha'apai having, and he considered Ha'apai having plentiful, and we all know
Mhm.
Ha'apai is very sandy. It's hard to kind of grow stuff there. That's why people from Ha'apai really master the Dogtai aspect of Tongan living,
For
especially
survival. Yeah.
living off the ocean, because land size, it's really hard to kind of hold, like, livestock, and then the soil there is very sandy, and it's not really good to grow a lot of good, and plentiful of crops. But they were able to still wow Captain Cook, because, like what he said, there was a lot of inter-island trading, so they were able to still do that and have big festivals. But like going to Tongatapu, that's why Tongatapu is the capital of the Polynesian nation, or the Tu'itonga Empire, because the ancestors said this is the most fertile part of the Polynesian nation. We're gonna settle and make it the headquarters, because all of Tongatapu, it is well known in all of Tonga now, and I think Polynesia. People haven't seen the cultivation of how Tonga can do the yams, even their
Mhm.
even their mandiokes, and everything just grows a lot faster and bigger in Tongatapu, because of its soil, and how you and
Yeah.
that's the and it's the reason why it's flat, because every part of Tongatapu is very fertile and can grow anything you want. So I mean, the sweet potatoes are awesome there in Tonga, and even the hopa, which is they call it faisa moa, like it's plentiful in Tonga. So I'm not surprised that it was called the whole island, and I'm because Captain Cook saw it was a garden. To me, that's what you sustain a big population, and it's a place where kings can reside and thrive. So that's just my thoughts there.
No, 100%. I just can't imagine saying all of Tongatapu is just one well organized garden. Then you have to understand that the English are known for gardening, right? Like the
Yeah,
English are known for that. And for him to give that compliment,
yeah,
that's impressive. Like I'm just trying to think in my mind, Masi, if you could just imagine all of Tongatapu, just think about it's just all gardens with paths to walk along.
uh,
That scale of agriculture is impressive. It's very difficult for me to really understand that. And what also stuck out to me was when he mentioned that that's evidence of a sophisticated land management system. Well, maybe that's the reason why our Tupo the first and all these guys understood the land is the key,
mm,
right? If you lose the land, you lose your independence. There's nothing else left. So, very interesting to see that even from Captain Cook's perspective, he saw the sophisticated. See, that's what we're saying. You have to look at what you observe and say, what's the underlying foundation that would facilitate such a thing? And Captain Cook is saying, I see how orderly this is. Look at the land. There must be a sophisticated land management system here that he doesn't understand, but he can just look at the results and say
Yeah.
something unique is going on here.
No, and just to add another thought to it, this is like what you said. The kept British people were guarding. British people were also very industrious people, like working nonstop. And for him to see that, it just shows you Tongans were industrial people too, working. And where does people? When do you have to be industrious? It's when you have a empire. You have a much bigger than your own tongatapu. Like it's a thing.
Yes.
It's a thing to sustain a lot of people, sustaining royalty. Like this is bigger than just Tongatapu. And I'm just saying it to where England was an empire having all of England. I think during that time they had probably Ireland too, but their empire was very vast. But in order to
Mhm.
do that, you have to be industrious, and that's what pretty much all of Tongatapu was. The whole Tongatapu was a Garden of Eden, to say the least. You know, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah. No, 100%. And it was very common for chiefs to have estates on Tongatapu and in Haapai and in other areas. And once again, that's why they have the extra large kalias. Look at all the abundance on Tongatapu being brought. You know, he observes like they're moving goods from multiple islands around here,
Mm,
right? And you look at that the fertility of Tongatapu on the soil. Maybe
mm,
they're taking seafood stuff to Tongatapu. That once again, exchange of value,
yep.
right? There's an exchange of value going on there. So,
Mm.
all right, let's get to the next one. I think it's is it your turn or my turn to read? I forgot.
It is my turn.
Okay.
Seven, huh?
Yeah.
Advanced navigational skills and canoe craftsmanship. 1774. Nomuka Ha'apai. In June 1774, while at Nomuka in the Ha'apai group, Cook observed the Tongans' impressive navigational abilities and the superior construction of their double canoes, which he noted were designed for long distance voyaging. These stood out compared to the canoes of other Pacific islands, which were often smaller or less suited for inter island travel. Quote from Cook's Journal, June 26, 1774, second voyage. The canoes of these islands are large and well built, particularly the double ones, which are fastened together with cross pieces and covered with a kind of deck. They are rigged with a large triangular sail
Mhm.
and managed with great dexterity. I was told by the natives that they make voyages to Fiji and other islands, which must be several hundred leagues distant, and their confidence in these vessels shews they are well adapted for such undertakings. Cook's detailed account of Tongan double canoes with their decks and triangular sails underscores their advanced maritime technology, while Tahitian canoes were also impressive. The pahi he saw in 1769. Cook's journal suggests Tongan vessels were uniquely suited for long distance travel, as evidenced by the Tongans' reported voyages to Fiji, over 400 miles away. The Tongans' dexterity and confidence in navigating these canoes contrasted with Cook's observations of more localized maritime activities in places like the Society Islands or Hawaii, where inter-island travel was less emphasized in his accounts. This navigational prowess highlighted Tonga's role as a hub of Polynesian seafaring, setting it apart as a maritime culture.
Mm.
What you think, Dua?
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, what sticks out to me here is Captain Cook is he's just confirming what we already kind of understand about ancient Tongans. They were navigating inter island,
Hmm.
right? Where they're telling Captain Cook, we go to Fiji and we go to other islands. Well, what are those other islands? Probably Haamoa, um, Uvea, Futuna. Who
Hmm.
knows what else
Hmm.
other islands they have out there? I don't know that any other island group in the Polynesia, let alone Pacific, that he actually describes that there's inter-island traveling at that scale, right? And
Mm.
so, to me, once again, you can say what you want to say about the Tuifiti or Tuimanua or whatever, but when people always tell me I got the receipts, well, what kind of receipt does Captain Cook bring? I don't
Yeah.
know.
No, I got my thoughts here, Tua. Just to add on, this was the secret. It seems this skill, and maybe that's why Maui was always a title was installed in Tonga. It must be the Tongan secret weapon for long distance travel, Tua. That's what it seems like, to have that upper hand, and maybe to quell and maybe to search for rebels or whatever. The skill of long distance travel. It must have been a Maui thing that was holded in Tonga. I don't know, because it seems like, I find it very funny. Like, Tongans were the very skilled in moving large masses of people and food provisions throughout the Polynesian islands. Oh, let's just say all of Pacific, because, dude, who knows their limitations when they had this skill to sailing
Hmm.
all over the Pacific. But not only that, they were the only Tongans are the last recorded to even up to the 1800s. None other Polynesian people were sailing, as late in the 1800s, even up to the 1900s, where Tonga was sailing traditionally in the canoes. Only recently, when they did that Hokurea, and the Hawaiians were, I think it was Nainoa Thompson, to my memory,
Mm,
from Hawaii to Tahiti. That was a big deal, because maybe they didn't get some studies and papers that the Tongans were doing it up to the early 1900s traditionally. I know they had to borrow some of the Micronesians kind of study to kind of,
yeah,
right, but to my understanding, it was Tuyone that built that ship that was sailed from Hawaii to Tahiti. But hey, it's to me, it could have. I think that was the secret weapon to that knowledge of
yeah,
navigating. I think that was a Tongan kind of up to make sure it was running the empire, and when it was sailing to check up on its Pacific or its Polynesian neighbors. But I don't know. That's just my
yeah.
thoughts there.
The best example we have of that, Masi, is looking at Ma'afu's success in Fiji, and
Mm,
and and the reason why he was so successful with those smaller islands, because he was the one who had the navy. He had the navy to do that, right? And if you look at it as the Polynesian nation as these small islands, a lot of them
mm,
in the middle of the ocean, and if you're the only one who can navigate long distance, and not just navigate, but you're the only one who can consolidate power and bring resources, that's what I'm saying. Like, let's say Uvea is kind of getting out of hand,
yeah.
right? The Tui Tonga can say, okay, we're gonna get guys from Samoa, we're gonna get guys from Fiji,
Iyo.
we're gonna get guys from Tongatapu, we're gonna get guys from Tokelau, and we're gonna go to Uvea and we're gonna fix this problem. No one else had. If you're able to consolidate that power and make those long distance travel, I mean, I can see that as a primary driver as to why. But here's the thing. But I say that yes, that happened and that capability was there, but that's not what makes the Tuitonga's empire impressive. What makes it
Mm,
impressive is they were able to graduate from the hard power and use soft power to govern. So, that's why it was, if it was purely a military empire, it would be like every other empire. It would disintegrate over time.
mm,
But because they understood, it's like, no, we're actually going to build relationships. We're going to make this a family affair
mm, mm.
where we're
Yeah.
intermarrying,
That's
and
long
and
standing.
then
That's long
long
standing.
standing.
Yeah.
And then we're going to set it up where the Tu'i Uvea is going to rotate between these islands. The Tu'i Manua is going to rotate between these islands. And that's a pattern we see all over. And then you realize there's only one place that it stayed with the same family and on the same island. That we
Mm,
thought. Then all of a sudden it's like this was probably had to be established through military, right? That seems to be like the starting point.
mm.
But then you graduate to no, we're going to decentralize power. We're going to give structure. We're going to make sure that this power doesn't accumulate over time within just one or two families. We're going to have it rotate amongst many. And then next thing you know, it's a civilization that's existed for thousands of years and is more impressively still active to this day. I mean, that's what makes the whole thing impressive. So unlike Sparta, like our sister said, unlike Sparta who died on their shield, well, they died, and we don't have the nation of Sparta anymore.
I got a quick question. Does Sparta even still exist today? Because I know Athens still exists in Greece. Does Sparta, its name still exists, or is that just evaporated over time?
Well,
Dua?
I could be wrong, but I think that's wiped off the map because they 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 fell behind. They fell behind like in technology, and they no longer became the most feared or most influential city state in Greece.
Mm. It's it's Sparta sounds like socialism to a little bit for the host.
It
It sounds
was. It
good.
was.
It sounds good. Hey, it always sounds good. Like, oh, it's always good. Just get everybody, just share it with everybody in the world and everything. And then over time, the country you used to know no longer exists. Just like the state of Sparta no longer exists. Fuck alpha. That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
That's why I asked you. It's like, hey, does Sparta even exist in today's context? Like, I think I think Tonga has it way better with the way we do our warriors. So,
Yeah.
yeah,
We don't want to be a Josh warrior. We want to be a Tuitama warrior.
that is hilarious.
Oh, Yahweh. All right. Next is number 8.
All right.
Is this me? I think this is
Yes.
me. Unique interpersonal dynamics and respect for authority, 1777 on Tongatapu. During his extended stay in Tongatapu in 1777, Cook noted the Tongans' deep respect for their chiefs, which manifested in specific social behaviors, such as lowering sails when passing a chief's canoe. I didn't know that. The
Mm.
level of deference was more pronounced than any other Pacific societies, where chiefly authority was respected but less visibly enforced in everyday interactions. I observed that when a canoe passed by one belonging to the great man, the people in the other would lower their sail and sometimes paddle out of the way as a mark of respect. This custom is strictly observed, and I have seen it nowhere else in these seas in so regular a manner. It shews the great authority these chiefs have over their people and the order that prevails in their society. The ritual of lowering sails as a sign of respect was a distinctive Tongan practice that Cook did not record in Tahiti, Hawaii, or other Pacific islands. In Tahiti, for instance, chiefly authority was evident in ceremonies, but less formalized in daily maritime interactions. In Hawaii, Cook noted the power of the chiefs during his 1778 through 1779 visits, but such specific visible gestures of deference were absent. This observation reinforced Cook's views of Tonga's highly stratified society where social norms were strictly enforced. The order he describes aligns with Tonga's centralized political structure under the Tuitonga, which contrasted with the more decentralized chiefdoms of the Society Islands or the competing ali'i in Hawaii.
Mm.
Mr. Aotearoa, comments.
No, I think we kind of touch on the reason why Tonga is unique, centralized power. That's an empire building factor. That's how you build an empire. Power needs to be centralized, just like all roads lead to, or all seafaring pathways lead to Tonga all roads lead to Rome. Kind of that saying that phrase that we use. And
Mm,
it looks like what Cooks is describing with Tahiti and Hawaii is that's what happens when you have decentralized power. There's a lot of people that can recognize other chiefs in other parts, or they can move different regions and still act a different region can act different from another region within the same island. Eh? Which in Tonga Tapu, which people can have different allegiance and stuff, but if the Tui Tonga commands your attention, everyone will fall in line. So decentralized power and centralized power, that's the difference compared to Tonga Tapu being centralized, the other Polynesian neighbors being decentralized governing power. That's what I kind of took when you're reading that, Dua. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I never knew that that was a practice. It makes sense,
Mm,
right? That they would take down their sail and paddle out of the way. Um, the other thing that I thought here is like he says um, that it was so strictly enforced, but you notice
mm,
it's not like Tatu'i Tonga went around with an army
no.
and said you better bow down. But it, like I said, this is something that has been in the behavior. This is one of the things that fascinates me about Japan, the Japanese
Mm,
culture, because there's so
mm,
much of that I see with the Japanese culture where it's not like someone is going around and policing all of these behaviors, but the Japanese, you can tell this is how their ancestors have behaved for thousands and thousands and thousands
mm.
of years. Is even when no one's enforcing it with force, they still follow it. And I think that's why I'm intrigued by them. And that's why it's interesting to me that for our ancestors and for us, we've been doing the same thing so many times that you see it even to how we behave in the modern era.
Mm.
And a lot of it is not enforced, but a lot of it is, well, this is just what we do. We've been doing it for thousands of years. Like I said, it's like it's in our DNA. You do something so long, so often, it's like it's just part of your DNA, and you do. That's what we do.
No, I got.
So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I want to talk. Let's expand about this a little bit because I'm thinking, the Japanese, they had the emperor, right? Kind of like
Yeah,
their spiritual kind of leader, like kind of untouched. But at the same time, there was the shogun who kind of run like the military, all of this
yeah,
too, eh? And I feel like they were in charge of a lot of the things and the administration of Japan, and that's probably what's over time maybe instilled a certain behavior all the time. When the shogun
hmm
wasn't there, there was still the emperor, and everyone still had a certain respect. That's kind of close to what with Tonga's kind of history. There was always the Tui Tonga, and who knows? Maybe the emperor of Japan had some military back in the days before shoguns really kind of gained popular and stuff. And then the Tui Tonga was always there, but when the Tui Tonga left for long voyages, there was somebody called the Tu'iha Tagalawa when he moved his residence um, outside of Tongatapu to Ha'amoa. But all the cultural practice like the Polo Polo and the Inasi was in Tongatapu, but there was always the Tu'iha Tagalawa enforcing the administration. So
yeah,
that's creating several more generations to act in a certain way and maintain how they used to act when there was just the Tui Tonga. Now there's the Tu'iha Tagalawa, and then they're all back in Tongatapu doing all the administration, and it's still being done even to today, even though we have a lot more freedom and freedom of movement going overseas and stuff, but there's still a certain level of behavior when you're in front of of high nobility and royalty. So I don't know, I just thought I would just touch on that a little bit because Japan just seems to be kind of close to how Tongans kind of act in the Polynesian realm. I don't know. What's your thoughts
yeah.
about that?
No, what comes up to my mind, Musty, when you bring that up is this is why I understand democracy. And granted, America doesn't have a democracy. America has a constitutional republic.
Yeah.
So there's some nuances there. I understand all these people why they think, oh, democracy, Tonga has to be fully democratic.
Mm.
And I'm just saying, I don't know if that's the right choice
You don't want
to
those
just
taxes. You don't want those taxes. I'm telling you, that's gonna eat you alive. Even when you're dead, your family's gonna pay for the taxes. Don't do it, Tonga.
suffer.
Just stay
Don't
how
do
you
it.
is. Stay how you are right now.
Yeah, like to me, what's coming to mind as we're talking about the Japanese and how we've done it is like if we just wholeheartedly just adopt what is perceived as what the future is, I just see like I don't know how that helps us
Mm,
keep who we are. I'm much more of a fan of look at the example that Tangaloa did with the Tuitonga. There was an adjustment to the leadership
mm,
and the structure, right? And
mm,
that worked for thousands of years. Then look at the example of Laufiri Tonga and Tupo the First. There was an adjustment. And yes, we adopted a lot of European structure, but it was to a Tongan foundation and to a Tongan format that still maintained who we are as a people. That's that's one of the reasons why I'm really hesitant when I hear people say, "Oh, Tonga will never be free until they get rid of the king," or "Tonga will
or
never
make
be
it like
free
Britain.
until."
Just make it an
Yes,
imagery, a
yeah,
ceremonial thing. Yeah.
yes. And the question I ask myself is, then is it still Tonga if you were to do that? I don't
Mm,
know. I don't know if that'll
I don't
still
think
be
so.
Tonga
And
if you do
people
that.
will lose a lot of part of our culture because we'll behave differently too if we know that.
Yeah. Well, and see, and that's the thing. I guess we ask the question now is you know, is that the right choice for Thomas? I don't feel that way. I think what makes Tonga what it is, or the what makes the Polynesian nation what it
Mm,
is that we are a kingly people. That's just what we are. We're a kingly people, and we've been a kingly people for thousands of years.
mm,
Like I understand the thinking behind why they think it needs to be democratic. Okay, but I think it's just unwise to just take what we see other people doing and just think, oh, we're just gonna copy them.
mm,
Why don't why don't we just look at like that makes sense? Yeah, we'll adopt some of that stuff, but there's other stuff that is unique to us and what makes us unique. We should keep that,
yeah.
you know? So
100%. 100%.
all right, I think we're getting close to the last one, Mr. Atearoa. Let me see where we are.
Is this the last one? Number 9.
Yes.
All right, that's me. Abundance of marine resources and fishing skills. 1777. Rifuka Ha'apai. Oh yeah, that's the fishing skills island still to this day. In April 1777, while anchored at Lifuka in the Ha'apai group, Cook was impressed by the Tongans' fishing techniques and the abundance of marine resources, particularly turtles, which were more plentiful than in other Pacific islands. He noted their skill in catching fish and turtles, which supported their ability to provisions his ships generously. Quote from Cook's Journal, April 30th, 1777, third voyage. The people of Rifuka are excellent fishermen, and their nets and other tackle are made with great care and ingenuity. They catch fish in great quantities, and turtles are so plentiful that they brought us several every day, which they took with ease in the lagoons. I have not seen such abundance of turtles in any other island, nor fishermen so skilled in their trade. Cook's
Interesting.
interesting. Cook's emphasis on the abundance of turtles and the Tongan's fishing prowess set the Fuka apart from other Pacific islands, where marine resources were valuable but less consistently abundant. In Tahiti, fish were plentiful, but turtles were less frequently mentioned, and in Hawaii, fishing was significant but not highlighted with the same enthusiasm in Cook's journals. The ingenuity of Tongan fishing nets and their ability to supply turtles daily underscored their mastery of marine resources, which supported Tonga's economic and social systems. This contrasted with places like the Marquesas, where provisioning was limited by scarcier was it scarcier scarcier
Scary.
res- yeah, scarcier resources, making Tonga a uniquely reliable stop for Cook's cruise. These additional accounts reinforce Tonga's uniqueness in Cook's eyes through its cultivated landscapes, maritime expertise, structured social norms, and marine wealth. However, Cook's European perspective often idealized Tonga's order and productivity, reflecting his bias towards societies that mirrored European notions of civility and discipline. His failure to fully grasp the complexities of Tongan politics, the 1777 plot mentioned previously, suggests his observations were surface level in some respects. The quotes are sourced from Beaglehole's editions, which preserve Cook's original wording from faithfully more wha- which preserve Cook's original wording more faithfully than earlier em- emblemished publications like Hawksworth's 1773 account. Compared to other Pacific islands, Tahiti was lush but less orderly in its agriculture and social practices, with more frequent theft and looser chiefly control. Hawaii had more powerful chiefs but lacked the visible everyday different rituals Cook saw in Tonga, and its marine resources were less emphasized. New Zealand was rugged and its Maori society more
Marshall.
martial, contrasting with Tonga's peaceful, cultivated appearance. Marquesas were resource scarce and less organized, making Tonga's abundance and structure stand out. Thoughts, Tua?
Really blown away with his discussions that he thought these were the best fishermen he's seen anywhere.
Mm, mm.
That is this comes back to what we talked about maybe a little bit earlier. I can't remember who asked the question about capitalism,
Oh,
right?
towing style. Yeah.
Tongan style. This is a specialization is one of the features of a capitalistic environment because it allows people to specialize, right? Because to to bring more value to the table, you specialize, and this is where the Fatongia structure, right,
Mm,
um, or the Tufunga structure allows certain people, and it sounds like it it was in families, right? It was certain families were allowed to just develop and refine and specialize skill sets. And it sounds like in Lufuka, I mean, that's impressive, man. When you
mm,
have the guy who is traveling by sea, there's commercial fishing going on in England. He's going throughout the Pacific and sees fishing techniques throughout the Pacific, and he says, yeah, these guys are the most skilled that I saw. Now that says something. The other thing that came to my mind when you were reading Masi was the tapu system.
ah,
Apparently, the tapu system could was primarily instituted for resources, right?
so
Like
everybody
like the
doesn't take all of it. Mm,
yes, so there's no over usage of a resource. And maybe that
mm.
could be put into concept here is the tapu system is like regulatory stuff in the economic system,
Yeah.
right? And see, this is the kind of analysis that I think is hilarious. Josh is now trying to sell us. Josh the Warrior, who's at the front line, is saying to the back as he's standing in the front line as he looks back to the Tuitonga and says, "No, Tuitonga, the Tapu system is a religious one, right?"
Bari.
Like the Tuitonga is like Josh, just go and fight bravely and die very quickly. Just
Mm,
do that. Okay, now let me help you, Josh. The tapu system is perceived as a religious aspect. It's because the Tuitonga is a religious figure, and he institutes the tapu and it's respected not always by military force, but by religious observance by saying, Tapu, you're not allowed to touch the turtles in this area. Let the turtles flourish.
Mm.
Tapu is, hey, there's a shortage or we're overfishing this type of fish. You're tapu to fish that fish in that area. So that is what you need to understand, Josh. And I hate to break it to you, but literally the word tapu in the English dictionary, tabu, comes from Tonga. That's
Mm.
the Tonga tapu. But I appreciate the caps. Should I yell it out loud, Josh? Should I yell
Well,
it out loud, or is it because you're yelling because you're at the front of the front lines?
no,
But go ahead, Basi.
no, and I was just gonna say, Tua, that like I think even up to today, I think Hot Pie is one of the few places that can supply. I think when they're in season, because now they've, with modern days, it looks like it's the same kind of practice. Oh, there's only certain times of the season that Hot Pie are allowed. The Hot Pie people are allowed, or people anywhere in Tonga or anywhere actually can go to Hot Pie and get turtles. But Hot Pies are still known to be able to fish abundantly of these turtles. So, and it's in certain seasons. But look, even in the 1700s, Hot Pie were known to provide a lot of these turtles, and not only provide but
Marine resources. Yeah.
and catch them. So I'm not surprised, not surprised. But and that's a good point with the tapu system, because you've got to have a tapu system to have a lot of pigs, chickens, eh, fish, and then maybe certain types of fish, now even turtles, to have it abundantly to catch at any time. So interesting.
Yeah. Yeah. Here's another interesting comment here from Legrand on Facebook. One topic for future episode: the difference between Tongan and Tahitian, chiefly royalty. I think that'd be great, Legrand. If you have any kind of resources you want us to kind of look at and
Eo.
talk through, let me put Polynesia our email, so that way if you have any uh, information, links, or videos that kind of shows that, Legrand, send that over. I'm just putting it in the chat there, our email address, that you could email us and send that over for us, and we'll take a look at it. So
Yeah, because the only kind of Tahitian chief that is probably well known that I'm kind of familiar with is the Pomare Legrand. So, I mean, if you could provide us more materials and stuff, we can read
take a
about
look
it.
at it.
Yeah, take a look at.
Yeah,
We'll make that.
but that's a great topic. I think
Yeah,
we can definitely talk through that.
yeah,
Mr. Aotearoa, man, I think we coming up on time here. I'll give my closing thoughts, and then you can close us out, Mr. Aotearoa. But we wanted to jump online because we tried to at least have one live a week. That's kind of our goal. And as Mr. Aotearoa mentioned, we have a family reunion coming up this
yeah,
week. Very excited to head up to that. But that will tie us up for the rest of the week. So that's why we're having the live a little bit earlier than usual, because usually we have it on anywhere between Thursday and Saturday or Sunday,
yeah,
depending on our availability. But once again, I want to close my closing thoughts and address. There's a good bit of, we've heard it before, but it's kind of doing a little comeback on some of our social media, where they say, "Oh, need to change the name of the podcast to Tongue and Eyes because there's an overemphasis on Tonga." And I just want to say it's important that we start where it has the most intact portions of the Polynesian nation. That's why I love the suggestion from Legrand of looking at a comparison between Tonga and Tahiti, because we do believe that we were one Polynesian nation, and the capital is the only thing that had survived. And because it survived colonization, our thought is That's the root. That's where you'll find the closest, not in everything, but in general, of what it was anciently. And I think other islands maybe maintained other parts a little bit better than Tongatapu. Um, but once again, um, really appreciate all the viewers, all the listeners, appreciate all the support. Once again, we're slowly building through, um, getting more ways for people to contribute. If you find any value in what we're doing to contribute to the podcast, we're also looking to bring things of value,
Mm.
right? Maybe looking at some merch, looking at some um, exclusive content for people who want to contribute and get something in return for that contribution. But really appreciate everyone's time. Excited to continue this platform and having more discussions. But that those are my closing thoughts, Mr. Atearoa.
No, malo tua and malo everyone for joining us at this live digital cover session. Just like what Tualau mentioned, my parents are here in Utah, Eagle Mountain. You guys had a little peek on the founder of Polynesian Eyes, David Tafale, coming in. So we're all just gathering, preparing for our family reunion. Looking forward to that and waiting for more family coming in tomorrow. So we're looking forward to that. And yeah, it's just always a great opportunity just to be on the live and interact with all our loyal followers from the beginning, because we've seen a lot of growth and steady growth happening, and appreciate everyone's following and commentary, good and the bad and the ugly. Hey, we like it,
Come
we
at
like
me,
it all,
like
we
our
like
sister
it
said.
all.
Go
Iyo.
ahead, come at us, come at us.
Ew, ew, come cameras, because only the ones who feel like they're not standing on truth, or probably the closest to the truth, we can take anything. We're not afraid to take it, because when we know we're wrong, hey, we're gonna be wrong if you can prove that to us, and let the people decide on that idea. But love everyone, and just like we leave in the live digital kava session on the Polynesianized podcast, stay curious and ask the hard question. Ofa to everyone.
Ovado, peace.